So for today, and I think we've heard data and we've heard solutions and we've heard partnering. I think the biggest thing that I picked up all this morning was about who's going to pay for it. And I think that is the big thing that we have to overcome, because we need investments, we need improvements in this supply chain, and there will be a payoff, maybe at that specific point in the supply chain, maybe further down. And then comes the big questions: how are we going to share revenues, and how are we going to make sure we do the right investments? We've just gone through Valentine's Day, and this is red roses taken out of the shop on Valentine's Day. And that bunch on the left, same farm, same variety. And on Valentine's Day, that gave a 14-day vase life. And this is fantastic. I think this is what our industry can land into the hands of the final customer. And no doubt, I will buy those roses on the left. But just be aware that at times in that same shop, in the same bucket, there might be very disappointing flowers. I have a teenage boy at home, and for the last 15 years he has seen me buying flowers to say I love you to my wife. Now, can I expect my teenage son to pick up that habit of buying flowers to impress his girlfriends? And if so, we need to make sure that we do deliver the flowers on the left. So to understand, I'd just like to take you through why is the quality of flowers varying from shipment to shipment. Then on building a platform and sharing data, enabling decision making. And finally, I think I like to put a few points on the table where we can find those revenues that will pay for those investments. I think that was uniformly this morning. There is money to be made. And yes, there is effort necessary and there is investment necessary. I think with FlowerWatch, we've put a document together, FlowerWatch quality standards, and for every link in the supply chain, we have a unique document with key performance indicators, smart things that we've worked out with science, proven in practice, and they're measurable. So between a grower and a supermarket, we can now have a measurable set of standards to see what is the quality of the supply chain that we like to aim for. In those quality standards, we go into the details all through the flower farms, all through the supply chain, and starting with something simple as the bucket washing on the farm. Flowers harvested and put in a clean bucket with clean water, they will open fantastic. But make a mistake in the bucket washing, and even if it's only 10% of the buckets washed poorly, we are in trouble. So therefore, we need to have the best water source. I think at this moment, we took our Kenyan inspectors for training to Netherlands, and we had them check buckets on the flower auction. And I can tell you, the Kenyans are way ahead of whatever happens in the Netherlands with buckets. We have to look at cut stages. On the left, you see a bunch that's very tight. On the right, those flowers have a slightly bigger smile on their face. And so just half a day or 1 day difference in the moment of harvesting. We have way bigger flowers, we have better flowers. I think if we can deliver the bunch on the right, then that is what should be our aim. But the bunch on the right, people fear that if we ship it in a poor cold chain, the flowers will open too early and will arrive with a quality remark on the market. So again, with a better cold chain, we can ship bigger flowers, more open flowers with a nicer presentation on the market. Then it can also be a variety issue or an issue with ethylene exposure. These flowers have been exposed to 1 parts per million ethylene. The flowers on the right have been protected against ethylene damage. And this is something that we have to be aware. With the surge in avocado production and exports, avocados, a fruit, and this flower farmer that has invested in avocados just might put a pallet of avocados in the same truck. Well, we know that fruits produce ethylene. We know that flowers are sensitive. Apples have a tiny little bit of ethylene production. Bananas, we call them ethylene bombs. Maybe if this is apples, up to the roof here is banana when it comes to ethylene production. Now our avocados are clearly the nuclear option. Mount Kenya is not high enough to tell you about the ethylene production of avocados. We will have a challenge with, if the cold chain is not right, combining avocados and roses in the shipment. There is good farms losing their good name in the market because of combined shipments with avocados. Then it's all about temperature. On the left, flowers stored 3 days at 2 degrees, and we have fantastic flower opening. On the right, we have flowers stored 3 days at 10 degrees. We use the model of degree hours to tell you how well your cold chain has performed. I think we've set a standard of 500 degree hours to be partnering between the farm, the trucking, the forwarder, the ground handler, the airline. and then the airport upon arrival, and a final consignee. With this start, we've worked on that model quite a long time, and now we're putting everything together in we call it the Watch It platform. It's aimed at combining degree hours with a fast life test, with the audit on the farm, with the audit of the freight forwarding on the airport, with the audit of the ground handler. With all of this data together, we can take decisions. As in, we're good enough. That should be. The only way, the reason we have the data is that we should be able to advertise our performance to our customers in the market. If not good enough, that data should enable decision making to make sure we're doing better tomorrow. And this is where we've worked out a few slides as examples of the data, because all of this data now lands with data loggers. We have a tiny little, you can see it on the top. We have a data logger the size of this card, which is a sticker that we can put on your box. Tap at your phone to start it, tap at your phone at the customer to download all the data, and everything will all land in the platform with an AI layer on top of it. With that data, it becomes quite exciting. We've here airports, 3 or 4 different airports. We have at least 4 or 5 different ground handlers, freight forwarders, growers, trucking companies. We have your data. We know how good you are. This data is with our customers, but now we can start working on the data and enable decision making. Because with that platform, what we like to see is that, can we prove that the flowers are cold? The 2 pictures on the top right, flowers arriving on the market after 36, 48 hours en route. And those flowers are self-heating. Flowers are alive. Unlike fish, meat, pharmaceuticals, flowers are alive and they produce an enormous amount of heat by themselves. So besides discussing temperatures in trucks and cold rooms and aircraft, we have to be aware that packaging plays an enormous role. And start temperature plays an enormous role. On the bottom right, you can see an aircraft pallet up on arrival on the market, cold right into the core of that aircraft pallet. And I think that's what we're after, delivering a high quality product time and over again. We have all that data landing in a platform, and that's where we can start distinguishing between different seasons of the year. And we have the worst cold chain in Dutch summer. And that is not because it's warm outside, that's because our staff goes home early. Flower business drops a bit, or workday finishes at 12, the flowers come in at 1. They will be handled the following morning. It's not the climate, it's not the weather, it's our holiday season. But from that Power BI, from the database, we can make any analysis on how the farm, how the trucking company, how the forwarder, the ground and the airline have done. Everything lands in a platform in different ways. We can browse through that information. But here I like to see something of an excellent example. And this example is a shipment at 276 degree hours, which is within our target of 500 degree hours. We have minimized the loss of fast life or shelf life to less than 1 day. Or to put it differently, these flowers can be stored safely for another 2 to 3 weeks. And therefore, there's ways to make money out of it. Maybe in this graph on the left, it leaves the farm cold, it heats up in transport. You see the first sharp drop on the airport, that's the make cool step, either with vacuum cooling or blast sealing or crisscrossing. Further down, you see another sharp drop, and again, that's a make cool step up and arrival in the market. These flowers, all the way from Kenya into Netherlands, arrive at 3-4 degrees Celsius. This is a fantastic achievement. This is going to give good shelf life, long vast life, good name in the market from Kenya, and plenty of opportunities to save money. And the whole principle behind organizing flower cold chains is make cool, keep cool, and if necessary, recool. Early on in this graph, you see the make cool, the blue arrow. The farm is doing an excellent job here. The second step is the keep cool all the way through. Don't worry about fluctuations, it's the keep cool. It's always good to make your flowers cold. And finally, up and arrival in the market, if the flowers do arrive warm, it's the recool step. Make cool, keep cool, and if necessary, recool. And that's giving us the performance that we're after. This is a completely other graph. Somewhere at the bottom here, you see degree hours, 1,300 degree hours. Nick, if these are your flowers, you have customer complaints rolling in. This is 3 to 4 days fast life lost. This is terrible. And now it's all about who should pay this claim. And I think far too often, data results in discussion about who's doing wrong, who's to blame. Should we change airline? Should we change forwarder? Should we change ground handler? But in this graph, things have gone wrong everywhere. Because we can see here the first part, the farm and the trucking. While the cold room, the blue line, was at 2 degrees, the flowers left the farm after 24 hours at cooling at 5-6 degrees. Terrible situation. Then on the airport here, while the first part, there's a bit of a recool step, Later, further down on the airport, the ground handler or maybe the airline, things are heating up again. The other shipment just arrived at 3-4 degrees. This is already 12 to 13 degrees. But things go wrong and wrong and wrong again. So the farm, the airport of departure, and this is one thing that I like to see. I think this is an achievement within hands. We have cold rooms where we can load directly from the cold room onto the aircraft. We have the make-cool steps. But here on this graph, on the left, you see a dolly brought by a refrigerated aircraft pallet, brought by a motorized dolly directly from the cold room to the aircraft. I've suggested this to the Colombians in Bogota, and they laughed at me. It's impossible. I said, well, Kenya is doing it. FFF is doing it. The Colombians are now doing it just because the Kenyans showed it off. Between the two pallets, between the two airlines, we can see a 6-degree difference in temperatures. And I think this is data that we are gathering. With data loggers, with a heat camera, with a smoke tablet, we are making things visible in this supply chain. Then airport up and arrival. We have all cargo volumes shifting around. A few years ago, Amsterdam was winning. Now we see Liege winning when it comes to volumes. In this case, we see flowers spending up to 16 hours at the airport, and flowers are increasing by themselves, even though they were in a 7-degree cold room. So things go wrong. One of the biggest things going wrong in this one, 48 hours before the flowers were handled, before the flowers were unpacked. In a cold room at 7 degrees, and the flowers somewhere between 10 and 15 degrees. Things are going wrong time and over again. So in this discussion, someone has lost money, either the supermarket, either the grower. There's nobody else here losing money yet. But the discussion, the blame game, is so super unhealthy because it's not going to take us anywhere. And I think this is with data and data sharing. Let's not look at what happened yesterday. Let's see what we can achieve together tomorrow. And as an example, this is a Dutch importer. Flower boxes have arrived. They're taken from the pallet. And this box, we call it the Zim standard box, which is 50 by 1 meter by 20 high. Or auction trolleys are 1 meter by 120. The boxes don't fit. The stacking pattern here, it's good for maximum utilization of space. It's a disaster for the flowers because the heat camera picture on the left show the boxes on the side are cold. The boxes in the middle are self-heating, warming up by themselves. Leave these flowers over the weekend and they're disastrous quality. And I think this is talking together, getting the data points, because a slightly different box, like we've seen with Cargolite, they have the boxes outside. An exoskeleton, a frame, will help to allow air circulation. It will prevent the self-heating. Combined with a make cool and a keep cool, these flowers will arrive in prime condition to the market. At times, we can even blame the flowers. I think in this graph, we see the farm doing a fantastic job. The trucking is messing things up, but the freight forwarder is there with this is Kuehne+Nagel shipment. The freight forwarder is there to ship it out cold. We have a few ground handlers here. And I think one of you has a duty to look after the cold rooms. Either the flowers were left outside or the cold room was switched off. Because we can see here the big peak in the blue, 20 degrees. It's been at Nairobi airport. One of you ground handlers has to look seriously at your own trackers and see what can be done to sort this out tomorrow. But something remarkable happens. After the big drop, we see the blue line decreasing a bit. That's the flight. That's 15 airlines. 15 degrees is way too high. We can have your aircraft cargo holds at 4 to 7. The biggest thing is up on arrival on the market. We can see the blue lines being cold, and the yellow and pink, the flower temperature is going up by itself 1 degree per hour. And this is something that we do on our lab. So we have a botrytis warning. If flowers are shipped warm, humid for a very long time, it's a standard recipe to make sure they rot. So this is a hot box test where we create warm, high humidity, and a long time. And this is how we can, this is my cookbook recipe at our lab to create botrytis. And this is what we see. The flowers on the left are just up on arrival, full of condensation. They've been super warm, super humid for a very long time. And this is what we are encountering in the supply chain. We should sort it out. We should have data. In our platform, the next step is that we will have a trainings video.
Welcome and thank you for using
this is our AI
platform. I am Rose, your AI quality expert at FlowerWatch. You have arrived at this video because, in our analysis, we've given a botrytis warning. This is a graph from our Watch It platform. We can see in this graph that the shipment time of these flowers was 3 days and they arrived with a temperature exposure over 700 degree hours, including a botrytis warning. When do you receive a botrytis warning? You will receive a warning when the flowers in the box are above 15 degrees for a period longer than 15 hours. during the period when the flowers are above 15 degrees for 15 hours. It is very likely that condensation will develop on the flowers. 15 degrees, 15 hours and condensation are the ideal circumstances for a botrytis spore to germinate and to develop. On these pictures, you see a botrytis spore developing into a small spot and grow out to grey mold. Botrytis will reduce the vase life dramatically. In this video, in our FlowerWatch test facility, we show you a bunch of roses developing botrytis. You don't see much happening in the first days. After a few days, you can see petals turning brown, flowers wilting and finally flower heads falling off. How to avoid a botrytis warning? Here you see a graph with the FlowerWatch standard principle. Make cool, keep cool and recool if necessary. The farm makes the flowers cold. The forwarder keeps it cold. And the handling agent in Europe recools the flowers. Make cool. The farm can use a forced air cooler to cool the flowers in 30 minutes to the cold store temperature. Keep cool. The flowers can be kept cold by stacking the boxes wide. Recool. At the forwarder in Kenya or Europe, flowers can be recooled by vacuum cooling the whole shipment. Another important point to avoid a botrytis warning is to break the aircraft pallets as soon as possible. Within several hours after delivery of the aircraft pallet, it should be broken to stop the self-heating process of the flowers. After breaking, stack the boxes wide on trolleys so the air circulation inside the cold store can cool the flowers. If you want help sorting out this problem, then please consider implementing our FlowerWatch quality standards in your supply chain. For more information, please contact one of my real FlowerWatch colleagues in Nairobi, Kenya, or Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Thank you for watching this video.
I think this is what we're after with our Watch It platform. Have the data, farm quality checks, farm audits, airport audits, combined with the data loggers, all landing in one platform, and then enable decision making. Small step is breaking the flowers timely. I think one of the biggest challenges that we see with flowers arriving in Liege, it takes a few more hours for the flowers to arrive in the Aalsmeer auction. From Liege to the Aalsmeer auction, you have your flowers in between 5 and 8 in the evening. The auction workers start their work date at 6, at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock they go home, and only then do the Liege flowers arrive. If it's a Friday afternoon, the flowers will be handled. A fair chance it will only be Monday morning. I think that is where we need to have that data there. So I can point to Liege, please invest, but we need to have someone paying for it. But if that investment will pay off by saving a bit of labor on the Dutch auctions, it should be worthwhile. But then it's not Liege Airport who's going to do an investment, it's the ground handler. But the ground handler is still 3 steps away through the airline and through the freight forwarder from the grower or from the retailer who has the benefit here. I think how do we make that puzzle as in based on the data, we have different solutions. We can do a vacuum cooler up on arrival, up on departure. We can do early braking or a simple blast sealer to make the flowers cool up on arrival. But every time it's trying to see who's going to benefit, who's going to invest, and what are the efficacies of that solution. So yes, I would love to see vacuum coolers in Liege. We also have fantastic results now with a customer in the UK. We've brought the supply chain down under the 500 degree hours in the regular way as Liege is operating. So how do we make things work? Because we can look at cold chains, and this is what I would like to put on the table. This is a sea freight cold chain. This is 38 days at sea at 0.5 degrees. And with that degree hours, with the temperature exposure, it's only 600 degree hours. We lose less than one day shelf life, 1 day vase life, over a 5-week shipment, 5 to 6 weeks. And I think this is also proving something for air freight. The flowers are not as perishable as we've all thought in the past years. We've built up our careers understanding that if flowers travel long, if they travel warm, that they do decay and that they do lose value. But now with sea freight on the table, with better packaging, with fantastic cooling, the one thing that sea freight is proving for me is that flowers are not as perishable as we thought. I think sea freight will work. I think sea freight will grow, and it will grow to its rightful part, taking its rightful share of the business. If that's 90-10 or 10-90 or 60-40 or 40-60 between air and sea, I don't know. But what you have to be aware of, that many industries have worked on us beforehand, have gone before us in this conversion. This specific picture is from Lidl shipping line. Lidl advertised about 1.5 years ago, we will stop flying. And no doubt the shippers, exporters in this country have been hit by that decision. There's other supermarkets following, but Lidl was already setting up its own shipping line. Lidl had a 4,000 TEU storage facility in the Netherlands, just outside the port of Rotterdam. And then when all the infrastructure was in place, they advertised their decision. It's pure logistics, but then we have to think smart as an air cargo industry. What can we learn here? Because these ships, and I think this is something I was just discussing with Reggie, in Chile they have cherries. It looks like a little grape, but it's cherry, and the cherries are in enormous demand with Chinese New Year. The two things are just a little bit separate. So the normal route, sea freighting cherries from Chile to China will not work. They have a special Chile Express, taking the chilies from the country Chile into the Chinese market right in time before the New Year. After years of running it, it has gone from 1 ship to 2 ships. This shipping line goes directly Bangladesh, Sri Lanka into Rotterdam. Can we please have them making a stop in Nairobi or in Mombasa? But this is what we see with this graph, super cold, very smart, very well aligned. And I think if we then look to air freight, what can we do then? Taking learnings from what's happening on the sea freight. And there's money to be made. And I think that's the whole discussion this morning has been, yes, it's important. Yes, we need to cooperate. Who's going to pay? Well, going to pay comes where is the value landing? Because save on labor. For a while, this industry has been slowly, steadily changing to boxes on skids instead of using loose boxes. There is no other industry in the world using loose boxes. It's our Kenyan flowers, it's Colombian, Ecuadorian, Ethiopian flowers. It's time consuming. Every box taken of this ULD is a cost of 50 to 60 cents. Now we can do it with a forklift. That's going to save $150 to $200 of handling per ULD. This will also help if the boxes are not collapsing. There's no need for the cardboard protector around the bunch. So every box has always 1.5 kilos of packaging material around the flowers. We can stop buying it, we can stop flying it, we can stop removing it. So this is step on step on step. Even the picture on the right, it shows boxes with a tiny little bit of air circulation. That's what we've learned from the sea freight. With the air circulation, we eliminate the risk on self-heating. And that's the big idea that I think that we should consider. And this is what's happening in Miami. And somehow it's not yet happening in Europe. In Miami, the climate this year, the Valentine production came in early. They all air freighted it. And in Miami, there's enormous warehouses with pre-coolers, with blast sealers, with vacuum coolers. And those flowers are stored 0.5 degrees, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And this is how we can ship, air freight, the cheap January flowers into Valentine. Over Christmas, we use the sea freight. Then just early in January, when the tulip season starts and everybody is done with Kenyan roses for a few weeks, we should ship them to Valentine. Because on the left is an aircraft pallet, about 3,000 kilos. Nairobi's weekly export is 4,500 tons, 4.5 million kilos. I had a tour on this facility on the right. If you start counting the pallets, it's 18 long, 5 deep, 3 high. We can put 300 tons of flowers there, the equivalent of 3 full freighter aircraft. This facility is mirrored on the other side, and they have 16 cold rooms like this. So there's 4,500 tons of cargo storage in this facility. In flower business, or product is always on the move. There is no warehousing, there is no standstill. But I'll bet that we can save labor, that we can go from day fresh ordering, we can go to a replenishment system, and we can transport our flowers from a cheap period to an expensive period, a period with high demand. If we ever want to fulfill our promise to the online people selling flowers, we have to make sure that we start using warehousing like this to build up the volumes. So flying and storage of flowers for peak days. And I think we will prevent the Valentine surcharge. I think how much was the Valentine surcharge this year per kilo for the air freight? 50 cents or more, or closer to $1. Ship your flowers timely and put them in storage. That's money that you can lend. For the flower farms, instead of flushing your crops, which has an enormous risk of running into downy mildew, forget about flushing, have this stable production and then warehouse their flowers until the peak day is there. Just taking the learnings from sea freight. And sell from stock instead of day fresh ordering. If the sales in Europe is good, they want to set extra orders. Enormous amount of work around those last orders landing. But I think this is where we can have them in stock and you can fulfill any customer requirement. And I think that's also where it's about. In these flower shops, you easily find 50 to 100 buckets on a display. And there is choice. If the Kenyan flowers are full of botrytis, if the Kenyan flowers are too open, too tight or damaged because of the poor quality boxes, people will have a choice to go for Dutch tulips or chrysanthemums from Colombia. And I think it's all about Kenya's good name. We must make sure that this business that we've built up, $1 billion worth of exports, a freight bill somewhere of $750 million, let's start working on savings, efficiencies, reducing our footprint, and let's start implementing warehousing, something that our fruit and veg colleagues have done many years ago. In short, save labor on handling, increase the ULD weights. I just saw something of Sanjeev partnering with Etihad. Sanjeev's freighter with Astral into Abu Dhabi, feeding the lower deck capacity of Etihad. A regular ULD with loose boxes, 1,600 kilos. With the skidded model, up to 2,100 kilos. That's going to make money for us. For the airlines, for the shippers, and this will also be better net to gross. There will be more flowers in there and less cardboard. We can be avoiding dead freight. There's been many games around. If you have a bit of dead freight, let's put in a bit of vegetables that we had in store. Well, we can do it with flowers. Ship flowers from cheap January or cheap March. I think everybody who's a grower in here today knows there's little demand. And due to the warm weather, fantastic production. But those flowers have no market. But let's air freight them, let's store them, or let's sea freight them when the time is there. And we can push more flowers to the periods with the peak demand. But I think most of all, let's keep up Kenya's good name on the market. So make sure your data lands in our platform. Move your supply chain forward and land those savings. And for us, we like to be the partner that can help you with gathering that data, that can help you decision making. And if there is some inefficiencies or if there are some opportunities to land, let us be the partner to drive that system forward. And maybe this is the Monceau Fleur brand in Paris with a fantastic display. And let's make sure that Kenya's flowers hold on to their 40-50% market share on these shelves. Thank you.